Welcome to the Bitcoin Business Podcast put on by Sovereign. I'm your host, Brandon Karpeles. I think last episode I completely butchered the intro. I was looking at something on my other screen, so I apologize. This was much cleaner and much more professional. But today with me is Stephen Cole from Castle, or as you may have heard of it, Save with Castle. And so Stephen has been around a long time in the space and has done a lot of things before this, what he's working on now. So, Stephen, why don't we start with when you got into Bitcoin, what you were doing then, and just take us through sort of um, the I don't even want to say journey, but the different steps along the way of what you've been doing and up to what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. Excited to chat today. My background is mixture of Silicon Valley web tech and Bitcoin. So, from a young age, always drawn to computers and the internet, studied computer science, and then I basically wanted to get in Silicon Valley as fast as I could when I finished school because I thought that's where all of this exciting internet stuff was happening. And for me, I'm almost 40, so that was back in 2008 and worked at eBay, PayPal for a while. Kind of, learned big corporates and big web tech, and then I just fell in love with startup companies. I worked for startups in the cloud computing space in 2012, the AI space in 2015. And that model of tiny group of people, ultra focused on something they really believe in, just throwing everything at it, resonated with me. And so I decided I wanted to be involved in startups in some capacity for as long as I could imagine, and have continued to do that. Bitcoin came on my radar in 2012, and I got involved in 2013. Started buying a little bit. I was working in San Francisco at the time, and some of the smartest engineers who I worked with just could not shut up about this thing. And so that was a signal to me that there might be something to it and that it was worth a little bit of time to dive into. I was already kind of down some libertarian rabbit holes. So I was already, a big Ayn Rand fan. Atlas Shrugged as a book changed my life.
Reading it
And
right
Ron
now,
Paul's.
so yeah,
Oh, well,
yeah.
excellent. It warms my heart.
I already read The
I
Fountainhead, and I've seen the movie. I kind of, have gotten the Cliff's Notes of Atlas Shrugged, but I'm like, you know what? I need to read the actual like source text and do it. So for Christmas last year, I bought my wife and I, both of us, like a dual pack of The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, and so um, my my wife didn't keep up with me, but I finished the Fountainhead earlier this year, and so now I'm busting out Atlas Shrugged, about 130 pages in or so, so only like 900 pages to go.
Well, I love to hear it, man. Yeah, it's not exactly light reading, but it is so worthwhile in my view. Really kind of changed the lens through which I view the world, gave me a respect for builders, people who do things, who advance humanity. And then that combined with Ron Paul's presidential campaign back in 2008, that got me into Austrian economics. He was on stage at the Republican conventions talking about Mises, this guy that I'd never heard of. And so I think I was already sold on, by the time I encountered Bitcoin, on the idea of separation of money and state being a good thing for humanity, being a net positive. But I was in this place of just kind of despair, or like I'd been psychologically beaten down because I felt like there's no way they're ever going to let that happen. There's no way they're going to let us vote on something like that. And so I think that primed me a little bit for Bitcoin, because when I found Bitcoin in 2013, I thought, wow, actually, like maybe this is the tool that could let us achieve that. And that could be such a big unlock for humanity. So I kept trying to find ways to make it my day job, couldn't find the right fit. So I was just an enthusiast for years. I started running Bitcoin meetups and doing education and community building. And then around 2017 and beyond, I started angel investing with some of my personal capital into the Bitcoin ecosystem and broadly. And then I've also been a venture partner at TVP, a Bitcoin focused early stage venture capital firm, for a few years now. So, wore the investor hat for a while and always have a special place in my heart for community building and education. And now all of those things have kind of come full circle and brought me to, I'm co-founder and CEO of Castle now, and we're just laser focused on trying to make it easy for businesses to use Bitcoin, primarily as a store of value and treasury asset, and help business owners and corporate finance teams understand all that it has to offer.
Yeah, you were kind enough, you and your team member, to give us a demo last week ahead of this Square announcement, and there's just so much talk of okay, these merchants, they go ahead and, maybe one of us goofy Bitcoiners goes in there and we're like, hey, can we pay in Bitcoin? And here's how you turn the thing on, blah, blah, blah. And maybe it's just some run of the mill employee there, or they got to talk to the manager or whatever. Odds are, in this sort of beginning stage, as these merchants start to turn this option on, they're not really going to know what Bitcoin is, what to do with it, how to utilize it. So why don't you tell everyone listening exactly what Castle does? Because when you walked us through it, it's such a cool tool for business owners, CFOs, to be able to utilize in these situations where it's like, okay, we got the front end part of accepting the Bitcoin, or maybe even we bought some Bitcoin and we're, kind of keeping it in our own cold storage, or had that set up. So what is the value proposition that Castle is bringing to these businesses?
Yeah, Castle was kind of born from a combination of insights. So my co-founder and CTO is Joao Almeida, and he was previously co-founder CTO of OpenNode. And for the listeners who haven't heard of OpenNode, they were one of the first companies to pioneer and commercialize Bitcoin's Lightning Network. So they were really at the forefront of payments and merchant adoption for Bitcoin at the point of sale. And a lot of what I was trying to do, even as early as like 2014, I have these email threads that I dig up sometimes for fun of me emailing business owners around downtown San Francisco where I worked and just saying, you should take Bitcoin as payment. I'll come and give you more of my business if you take Bitcoin as payment, because I really wanted to just try to foster adoption. And I think in my head, especially back then, payments was how I sort of perceived Bitcoin adoption increasing. And
You
over
were
time, I
you
just
were in the Roger Ver camp then, or
some people have made like nobody exactly called me Bitcoin Jesus like Roger Ver, but there were some sort of compare. They're like, yeah, you're like an even more smiley Roger Ver or something like that.
Bitcoin
Was kind
John
of
the
thrown around.
Baptist, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, Rogers had a complicated history, but it's a fun comparison. So yeah, I just I believe so strongly in it that I was just stomping around trying to tell people more about it. But something that I very quickly realized is just it's brutal out there in practice. Like even if you get a business owner bought in on it, and even if they spend their precious time in the day figuring out wallets and tools and everything, they would, go through all of that. Sometimes they have to train their staff on it, and then they do it. And even if they're successful, nobody ever walks through the door and pays in Bitcoin. And that's at least back then. And that's different now. Like we've come a long way, but we're really early for both sides of the transaction to be ready, the recipient and for somebody to kind of come through your checkout flow who's holding Bitcoin already and would prefer to spend it. um, Love to see, like, ultimately someday I think Bitcoin eats all global payments. I think we're going to be buying coffees in Bitcoin, doing inter-country, interbank settlement in Bitcoin. It'll just be the default at every level. But today, we're so early. And so a lot of that experience, both from Joao's side building OpenNode and my side seeing the challenges on the ground of merchant adoption, we kind of thought, what tool can we build that lets merchants interact with Bitcoin, kind of using its store of value use case. If that is kind of the phase that we're in right now, is this savings phase where a lot of capital is going to find its way into the asset, and then eventually it becomes more ubiquitous for payments. And so Castle is a software platform that allows businesses to buy Bitcoin, and you can buy it in all the ways you're familiar with. But we have also enabled some more seamless and dynamic types of buys. So businesses can link up their payment or bookkeeping systems optionally. And those are names like Square, PayPal, Shopify, Stripe. Mind Body is a big one in the gym and fitness and wellness space. And then QuickBooks and Xero and Wave and names like that on the bookkeeping side. And so any of those systems the businesses already use, they're familiar with, and they trust. You can just link up your account to Castle. That process takes under 5 minutes. And then we give you a slider bar that you can just move that tells us how much of the revenue that's coming in your door you want to go into Bitcoin. And we put that on cruise control for you. So it's really that was the big kind of first product of Castle was ability to DCA into Bitcoin as a percentage of revenue. So even if things are fluctuating a lot, even if it's seasonal, it just happens and it's invisible to your customers. They still swipe their credit card, they still send you ACHs, whatever they're doing. So no friction there. And there's nothing to train your employees or your staff on. It's really just something that the business owner or the finance team can decide to do and can go implement.
So along those lines, I mean, it's a little different than what Square's rolling out because you're basically taking the fiat side and then you're saying like, hey, behind the scenes, under the hood, we're going to get you into Bitcoin, or you can manage your Bitcoin this way. You don't have to worry about that. It's so funny you said that you would have to train these employees and then no one would come in. I found I live in Chicago and I found a restaurant in Chicago. It was on BTC Map. We accept Bitcoin. It was even on their menu when I went in there. And then I went in there. I got like a drink at the bar before we were getting seated for dinner, and I was like, "Oh, I'd like to pay in Bitcoin." And the lady was like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm like it says here they actually accepted like a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. It said like ETH and I don't know XRP and I don't know some other shit coins." And I was like, "Well, it says right here you accept it." And she was like, "Hold on, let me go ask." And so they guy brings the manager over or whatever whoever the shift manager whoever it was sort of the highest ranked guy. He's like, yeah, someone came in here, they got us set up, and then we had everything ready to go. We like trained the people, and then no one used it. He's like, we didn't get one payment in. And so we just decided to cancel it. And he's like, so all the new staff have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm just like, gosh, what an absolutely epic failure of, I would think at least the person, whoever got him set up, would at least like come back there and, you know, patronize them. But he was like, we absolutely had nothing. So I I like this this concept of what Square rolled out where it's just like it's just in there. You don't have to manage anything. You can just hit a button. And then for the business owners that actually do want to accept Bitcoin, they can be like, okay, we have Bitcoin. And then your product integrates seamlessly into that where it's like, okay, now we can combine sort of the management of the fiat and the Bitcoin to the extent that any Bitcoin is coming in or not. And I think that's a pretty cool feature. There's so many. It's like the scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when he's trying to get the Holy Grail, and like all those people go through and just get their heads chopped off by like those. That's like everyone who tried to do merchant adoption for the last like decade. Like you would go in, you would try, and it was just like nothing. Or you finally got someone set up, and they're like, no one takes it. I had one guy I got set up. I came back a year later. He's like, oh, I lost my pin. I'm like, what did you write down the backup? Like I said, he's like, I don't know, man. I don't think so. And then I was
Yeah.
like, well,
Oh man.
so I was like, okay, would you, this was when Bitcoin was probably like in the 20s or 30s back then. And I was like, oh, you know, can you like open the wallet? Or he's like, no, I'm done with it. I got burned. I'm out. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like there has to be way better systems to do this and better messaging from the customers. And yeah, you're right too. You mentioned the fact like it has to be both the merchant and the payor. Like we need growing adoption on both sides of this to make this work. Otherwise, it has been this thing that so many of us thought it would really thought would propel and catalyze Bitcoin to the next level, and it's just been just stagnating in quicksand, almost going backwards for like the last decade. So
So painfully true and spot on. That pattern of like, oh yeah, place says they accept Bitcoin in some way. They signal it somehow, somewhere, and then you go in excitedly as a Bitcoiner to support, a fellow Bitcoiner, and the reality on the ground is is a little disappointing. So yeah, I mean that's I've encountered that a lot over the years, and had people who have lost keys and all kinds of just rough stuff. And so we're really just trying to meet business owners where they're at. Think about like what is the practical reality of today? Like what tools are businesses using? They're so busy they don't have time to necessarily understand a ton of the details, at least not on day one until they dive deeper down the rabbit hole. And so all of that combined with like where are we in Bitcoin adoption? If it really is this somewhat sequenced adoption of phases where we're like store of value first, medium of exchange after that, unit of account lastly, after we crush both of those, then what is the right tool for the job? And Castle is the result of all of that brainstorming and building. And it's a blast to get to work on. What Square's doing is awesome, by the way. Like, stoked for that. That is the biggest thing in merchant adoption that I can probably remember in my last 10 years of Bitcoin. So it's really exciting times, and Jack and Miles and everybody there deserve a ton of kudos. And I think it's going to just get more merchant, like whether they're on Square and they can use that feature and life's wonderful, or if they're on some other provider and they're like, man, I wish I had that Bitcoin magic. Like, it's going to get them thinking about this. It's going to validate the concept. And that is just good through and through.
To just have that seamlessness. Like, I know there's all these people out there that it's like, oh, if the business owner doesn't want to take self custody, then what are you doing? It's like, listen, we tried the purity test, okay? We try to do it. We try to get these people set up correctly. We try to have them run a BTC Pay instance and manage their own liquidity and get them a Phoenix wallet if they're at like a farmer's market. It's like that failed, okay? Like, you have to come to grips with the fact that that failed. And it's not like you just woke up one day. A lot of Bitcoiners are just 10,000 hours into their journey, and they just think you know some business owner is going to wake up and start at hour 8,572. It's like, no, all of us started somewhere. We probably held our coin on some stupid exchange. We probably bought a terrible wallet like a ledger. We probably lost some coins along the way. Like, you guys need to, like, I just feel like so many people are I don't want to say at the finish line, but just, you know, way far down the road. They're on, mile 18 of the marathon, and someone who just started, you're like, why aren't you up here with me? And it requires better tools. It requires things that maybe aren't completely perfect in terms of how the custody is arranged, what your privacy arrangement is. Are you getting KYC coins versus non KYC coins? It's just like everyone just chill out for a little bit. Let the tools be built. Let people dip their toe in the water, and then let them learn and let them grow. And it's like it drives me a little crazy sometimes. We haven't gotten a ton of flack and or anything like that at Sovereign, but there's just a lot of people out there that are like, if you don't set someone up in a completely self-sovereign setup, and they keep their phone in a Faraday bag, and they've built a bunker underground where they're like not exposed to the U.S. military or something. It's like, guys, come on, can we just back off a little bit, and let's build some good tools that get people in, that help them understand, that ease their transition. And so really appreciate what you guys are doing, and as you walked us through. And that's not to say there's anything even wrong or anything with your own setup. At the end of the day, everyone always has the option to sweep into self custody. Like, that's always been,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
always
that
send to your own hardware wallet. So
Yes, and I agree so strongly with what you described. I've been pretty deep, like privacy on Bitcoin is near and dear to my heart, and so I've been pretty deep down though. Like, every spend should be a coin join, not your keys, not your coins. KYC Bitcoin's not real Bitcoin. Like the extreme end of that spectrum. I've spent a lot of time and energy thinking about. And my one frustration with it is exactly what you touched on, just recognizing the reality of people's circumstance today. And that if we make that the barrier to entry, no one's ever going to start. And so you have to recognize that it's a journey and it's a progression. And maybe the best step is buying custodial Bitcoin or even the Bitcoin ETF. Maybe that becomes the top of funnel. And then you get a little bit of price exposure, at least on paper, and that makes you interested and it makes you willing to carve out more time from your schedule and learn more about what private keys are and what counterparty risk is, and then they can go deeper down the rabbit hole. And so yeah, we're trying to strike that balance of make it easy to get going. Our product is custodial by default, so when businesses buy, however they buy, whether it's like manual spot buy, fixed cost recurring buy, sweep account purchases where they can kind of set a threshold in their checking account and we automatically sweep any funds over that threshold into Bitcoin every day to make sure you don't have any idle cash leaking value or our percentage of revenue into Bitcoin feature. So whatever way you're buying, it's custodial by default, but you can withdraw anytime. So we want to make it easy for someone who's brand new to all of this to get started, but not like limit anyone in what they can do and to do our part in educating them about after they've got some sats, then what should they be thinking about and kind of leading them on that educational journey.
Exactly. And that's our job as people in this industry is to explain that to them, to teach them about it, and then show them how to do it. A lot of this stuff today is complicated. Not complicated, it's just a lot of steps. And it's like if you don't know what steps to take, you're not going to figure it out. And not everyone's going to watch an hour and 12-minute BTC sessions video. They're just not. Like that's just read out. Yes, I did. I'm sure other people did. Yes, I coin join all my
Shout out to
coins.
BTC sessions,
Yeah,
the goat.
legend, absolute legend. Actually, I don't have any coins, so I mean that's moot. But uh, th- that you know, not only are people not going to be willing to step in, do the learning curve, all that. But we're going to have, as we talked about earlier, people going backwards too. Like I have multiple people that, two examples I gave earlier of people that are like, I don't know, maybe they'll come back to Bitcoin. Maybe if the price gets high enough, they're just going to be like, screw it, I need to get back in. But for now, they're on the sidelines. And those were people who took the first step and got their own wallets, put everything in, self-custodial. They were receiving Bitcoin, so it's technically non KYC, and now they're gone. So
Yep. Yep. Man, it's so interesting. And I feel like, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on it. But like when I think about where we're kind of at today for business adoption, I feel like it's sort of like 2012 or 13 in some ways where like back in those years, the idea of an individual buying Bitcoin just personally was kind of fringe and kind of strange, right? Like you never encountered anybody in your day to day who knew what in the world Bitcoin was, and it would raise an eyebrow for sure. And now, a little over 10 years later, it's just completely normal. Like everybody's either got Bitcoin or they have someone directly in their life who's close to them who they know who has Bitcoin. And so it's become normalized for people to just personally invest in Bitcoin. And I think now the idea of businesses buying Bitcoin, businesses holding Bitcoin and establishing a Bitcoin treasury, that today in 2025 is a little bit fringe and a little bit weird to most people. And over the next decade, a big theme is going to be it's just going to become completely normalized. There are 34 million SMBs in the US alone. Maybe 20,000 have any Bitcoin. And I think in 10 or 20 years, over 95% of them will hold Bitcoin. And so it's easy to think we're further along than that because we're just up to our eyeballs in it all day. But when you zoom out, we're so early when it comes to businesses thinking about and using this.
so we are insanely early, like painfully early. That being said, the responses I get from businesses when I ask them, I always ask, "Do you take Bitcoin?" And you know, then 9 times out of or 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. But um, it used to be like absolutely not. I mean, they almost looked at you with disdain, like, how dare you ask me that question? Or what is Bitcoin? I mean, there was probably like 20 to 30% of the people I used to ask 4 or 5 years ago, or had just never even heard of it. And now, I'll at least get like a joke. I'll at least get like a not yet, or like, oh, we're not there yet, or we don't have that capability. It's much less like dismissive and negative, and it's at least like, hey, yeah, maybe like the door might be opening to that. So I would say the sentiment is definitely shifted. I would say, adoption, like you said, still remains really, really low. But like that's our job, is to get out there, help these people understand it. And that's why we get up in the morning is to try to increase that adoption and help people. I've told this story on here 8 million times, but in my past life, I watched these small business owners just die because of inflation. Just their businesses, companies that had been in the family for generations, are now having to close their doors or sell or liquidate assets or whatever. And it was heartbreaking to watch. And they didn't even understand why. They didn't even get the problem. And um, so part of the mission here, getting out, people are way more receptive. 2020 completely changed everything. Like um the 40 to 60% inflation, whatever the real numbers are. I mean, not the ridiculous CPI numbers, but business owners see that stuff. So you can tell a
Yeah,
business owner it's 3% inflation, but his inputs cost 9% more, cost 10% more. The freight cost 15% more because the energy prices are up. Like, you can't lie to those guys because they're looking at the books, they're looking at the numbers, they're watching the costs in real time go up more, as opposed to someone sitting on their couch that is getting government assistance and eating Cheerios and Lunchables as their meals, so they don't notice inflation. Like, if, paying paying rent somewhere, like you can't fool those people, the business owners, and
absolutely.
so it's hitting home much harder. And we actually just had someone reach out this week, just completely unsolicited, and they were like, "We're getting destroyed by inflation and rising costs. Like, we need to learn about Bitcoin now." And so, that's obviously just an anecdote, but I would say that sentiment, even the businesses I talk to in my community, and the ones we're working with, and everything. I mean, that is top of mind. Whereas I would say, if you ask business owners in 2018 or 2019 what they thought about inflation, they'd be like, I don't know, it goes up like a couple percent every year, so we just charge another 2.5%. That's kind of that. But now it's
Yeah,
completely punching them in the face.
totally. They can feel it. They're feeling the squeeze, and there's all kinds of room for funny business with the CPI and with data and measurements that
Funny business
supposedly
is a
quantify
generous,
inflation. Yeah,
generous way to
yeah, yeah.
describe that.
We can remove housing from it. We can, kind of cherry pick to make the numbers look as best we can. But the people on the ground who are sweating, just trying to build great businesses, they're the ones who feel it. And the sad part is they're the ones who really have to bear the brunt of it. Big corporates, they've got whole departments dedicated to understanding this and mitigating the impact of inflation on your business, and they can sometimes access capital markets in favorable ways if they're at a certain scale, and small businesses just get brutalized by it. And so, yes, we talk to and we serve large corporations and finance teams, and that's part of it. But we are always going to serve small businesses too, and that's actually what we spend the most the hours in the day kind of talking about and trying to engage with. We're going to the Small Biz Expo in Dallas early next week, and like that's kind of what it comes back to with the heart and the mission for us is Bitcoin leveling the playing field. Bitcoin giving the smallest business access to the most powerful savings technology in history in just the same way as the most sophisticated nation state in the world has. That is pretty special and fun to work on. And
Awesome.
fun fact, so some of the branding that we have for our booth at these events, we did one in Austin a few weeks ago, and we're doing one in Dallas next week. And we're like our backdrop for our booth just says rent gets cheaper in Bitcoin.
Nice.
Like,
Nice.
if you like eggs get cheaper in Bitcoin. Just really trying to drive home to them. If you make this your money and you use that as a framework and you're able to operate on a long time frame, then it is an incredible tool in your tool belt.
I mean, that's so key too, is framing it, this is like a 5 to 10 year solution. This is a long-term vision. And that is another part that's so cool about doing this and working with these business owners. It's like you you have to underlie your entire premise with you have to lower your time preference. So like day one, we're starting from like, this isn't a solution that's going to help you next week. Like your eggs aren't maybe, maybe you'll get lucky and you'll time the market perfectly. But like that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make things more affordable 5 years from now. We're trying to grow your balance sheet. We're trying to take your savings and provide you flexibility into the future. And I actually did an interview with someone, and they asked me, they're like, "So why would why would a business owner who's like experiencing inflation, why would they start buying Bitcoin?" And I'm like, it's not going to solve their problem 5 months from now, 10 months from now. It's going to solve their problem 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's like, do we wish they bought it back in 2020? Yes, they would have staved off inflation, but guess what? They didn't. So now we need to start buying today. And then when 2030 rolls around and this problem gets worse, they're able to still compete. They're able to manage their balance sheet and they're able to lean on their balance sheet instead of having to rely solely on their income statement.
Yes, and as you know well, yeah, the longer the time frame, the more effective the tool Bitcoin is for that. And it's so neat to see how applicable it is across a variety of industries. We've got like restaurants and hospitality places, HVAC companies, roofers, gyms, law firms, medical practices, places that you would just never suspect when you go in day to day are thinking about Bitcoin or have anything to do with it. Some of these spots you go in and you swipe your card or they debit your checking account, and 3% of that is going into Bitcoin automatically. And it's encouraging to see. We are still early, but I think it's so neat how applicable it is because it really is just the money to all kinds of industry.
It's so cool too because right from day one, you now you have long-term incentives aligned. Like this is meant to be a long-term relationship. This is something we want to be doing in the future. So we have to treat you really well. We need to make sure you understand that this is a long-term value proposition, and like right then and there you're already building something that's more than just a transaction. Like you're building a relationship as opposed to so much B2B today is just a transaction, or it's like let's just make the next sale so we can get this quarter's numbers to look better, or like hey, can we just can we get you into this software so I can make my numbers look better. But it's like I know you're not going to get any value out of this like 2 years from now. You just changed your. I mean, when I worked in fiat land, the amount of like internal systems we just switched because someone's cousin knew someone or there was an in. It's like the UX didn't get any better. The functionality didn't get any better. I wasn't like more equipped to do my job. I didn't have better tools. It was just we're just switching it because someone agreed to give us some deal on something, and then we got into it. It's like there is zero value add here. My job is made no easier. I don't get any benefit out of this. Like it's completely pointless. It's completely arbitrary and ridiculous. Whereas when you're working with Bitcoin, when you're working with these businesses, you're like, now we're aligned for 5 years from now. Like we're tied at the hip going into the future, and we both want to see each other succeed. And it's just a
Yes.
completely different framing of incentives. So
Stark contrast to things in fiat land for sure. Yeah. When you believe, you have that shared belief in this better future, and it's something you want to work on for a really long time. And
And
that
even
is
just yeah,
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
and you can get obsessed with it, like the big companies that might try to eventually do this or catch up to it. Like, sure, it's fine, but companies that are really about the mission when it comes to this stuff, they think about it all the time. And I think that's also a big strength of small companies like startups is you select for and who you hire and who you partner with, you get to select for people who are completely obsessed. And their employees are going to do 10 times the amount of work in a given day than employees who might be in a more, let's say, comfortable position at a larger company that they don't really love necessarily, that they're just kind of trying to, get a salary from and get by on. But we believe in this stuff. I want to be working on this stuff for as long as I can imagine. And and I think it has interesting tie-ins too to other parts of technology advancement that I'm really excited about. And this might be interesting for the audience because it's probably one thing that I'm a little more uniquely positioned to speak on. But some of the startup investing that I've done over the last few years has been focused on hard tech and reindustrialization and bringing back America's manufacturing base and things like that. And that's something near and dear to my heart. I think it's really important that we have a renaissance of capability and appreciation around all of that. And I think most people wouldn't really think about Bitcoin as being part of that. They would kind of have these two mental buckets of like, okay, well, Bitcoin is sort of this like fintech software thing in the bucket of crypto. And there's kind of this like casino vibe to it. And people who are working on it should, it would be better if those people just went and like built things with their hands instead. And I understand why that is the perception, but it's a such a misconception. And in my head, Bitcoin fits so beautifully and importantly into that reindustrialization effort and into really building any kind of tech of substance that is long lasting. But especially in America, our manufacturing base and hard tech is really withered. And so SpaceX holding $1 billion worth of Bitcoin excites me. I'm glad that they do. And that is an important signal. And something I'm personally excited about is seeing more hard tech companies do this as well. And I can tell you for in the audience for a fact that it is happening. There are companies out there, even early stage startups like Series A, B, and in some cases earlier like seed stage, that are putting a modest percentage of their financing rounds and or their revenue into Bitcoin. And it is early days for that, but Bitcoin provides a foundation for civilization. The money is so foundational to civilization. It's how we coordinate our economic activity and measure how much value we're delivering. And we've just existed in this place, especially since the 70s when they removed the link between the dollar and gold completely, where that's all been skewed. And so you have builders like Elon or Jeff Bezos, whoever, that take society 1,000 steps forward. And then central bankers get to take us 500 steps backwards. They get to undo some of the progress for humanity by sort of wealth redistribution, skewing the value signals with the monetary system. And so as companies like that start holding Bitcoin, they build useful things, they lock in the fruits of those labors using Bitcoin, then it really just advances humanity in a more powerful way.
Well, I mean, that is one of like the blackest pills. I refuse to be black pilled. I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful for the future and excited for my kid, hopefully kids and their kids one day. But when I think about like how many, in my opinion, it's centuries. Like how many centuries have we retarded our advancement
Mhm.
because of the central planning of the money? Like I mean, to me, I feel like we should be living in like the year 2200 right now, in terms of
Yeah.
technology. Like if we continued on this trajectory, and it's just been. It's just been absolutely a shame to see that. And along with that, your point of this hard tech, we're in an interesting situation where the reason all the jobs left this country and went overseas was because we destroyed our money. And then other societies were able to destroy their money even better than us. And so they were able to drive the prices down, impoverish their people to such a point that we got the benefits of consumerism, to the extent you can even call them benefits. But that took 50 years. And so everyone's, oh, Trump's going to onshore everything. We're going to bring Doge in. We're going to slash all this stuff. It's like, no, that's literally impossible in an inflationary monetary system. We can't reshore everything. It's not doable. We can't cut the grift out of the government. That's not doable because we need those dollars to flood the economy, and everyone's in debt. Everyone has a mortgage. Everyone has a car loan. Everyone has student debt. And so there's absolutely no way we can stop pumping those people's bags, because then they're going to fault on the debt. Then we have '08 all over again. And so, like, the entire system is completely incapable of onshoring anything and doing this hard. I like your phrasing of that. This sort of hard tech build out with an inflationary monetary system. The current dollar system, it's infeasible. And so, like, the only way to do this is to start saving in a better money, to start using Bitcoin. And then it's going to take, that's going to take 40 to 50 years to sort of come back from that. Like, I'm not going to be here when we recover from the last 50 years of the hollowing out of our manufacturing base. Like, I'm curious if you
Maybe
agree
if
or
we
think
get
differently.
maybe if we get good enough at this longevity tech,
Oh,
we'll
yeah, good
we'll
point.
both be
Good
around
point.
for
Yeah.
full hyper Bitcoinization, and all that that entails. But yeah, I
Maybe
agree.
my
It's
brain
like,
will be in like a server somewhere. And then,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we'll cryogenically be somewhere,
yeah,
chilling, so to speak.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's like, I mean, trying to build and trying to onshore that while the money's broken is just, it's like building with one hand tied behind your back. So Bitcoin is such an accelerant and such an important part of that whole movement that I don't think is just obvious enough or thought about enough. And so it's, it's fun to just talk more about and try to get people thinking about.
And the other thing that's so cool too about Bitcoin is when you start putting it on your balance sheet, all of a sudden you're not, or I shouldn't say no longer, but your emphasis on sort of playing the fiat game, sort of how do I cozy up to the money printer, like, it becomes less important, because now you get to see a future where you're like, I just need to run a profitable business. Like, I
Yep.
just need sats flowing through to the bottom line, and then I'm good. Like, I can do what I want. I can have my vision achieved. Whereas, I mean, now it's like, okay, I'm building a factory, but I know I'm not going to be able to make money without some sort of subsidy or some sort of assistance program or borrowing cheap debt or whatever it is. And it's like you get this complete reframing when you know that your future is secured because the money you're saving in is going to make it into the future and keep its purchasing power.
Yeah. Yeah. The impacts of broken money are so profound. And even if individuals in society don't, understand or necessarily think a lot about economics or the monetary system, we all on some level perceive this and it influences our behavior. And so if you feel just through going your through your life experience that the money you make today is going to be worth less in the future, then it changes your behavior in ways that are not necessarily good for society. It creates this incentive to cook the books today to try to lock in some value before, get some money, use it on some things, realize some gains before the world kind of figure something out. To cut corners, to water down your wine, to use flimsier building materials in your construction, so that you can get paid in money today, and before it's worth less in the future. And if you on the inverse, if the money is good and the money is strong, then it gets people thinking in this long-term orientation. You think, I like wow, imagine like if I'm disciplined and I build something great and customers want to work with me for the rest of their life and I get repeat business, then there will just be these long-term compounding effects to what I do, and the value of my savings might not only be protected, it will be amplified. And that is just the underpinnings of human flourishing.
Uh, oh man, there's so much social commentary out there about like um the okay, social media is destroying all these kids, or nobody wants to work, or we're devolving morally, and like all this stuff is true. And then inevitably you see, I don't even want to call him a mainstream commentator, but someone outside the Bitcoin sphere, if you will, inevitably they come back to like, well, no one can afford a home anymore, no one can raise a family anymore, like the prices have gotten so expensive. And it's like, what, do you want to explore that more? Do you want to understand why? And then unfortunately, like the solutions that come back are like, we need more subsidies for mortgages, or we need like a home buyer program for college students. And it's like, no, like the entire system, all of it, it's completely rotten. It's completely, and I know we use the phrase of broken money, but it's really working exactly as it was intended when they started the Federal Reserve, which is to extract wealth from society by pushing a button and charging interest on money they make out of thin air. So it's actually a perfectly functioning system, and it's just actually getting better and better. Its intention is to destroy society and extract more and more wealth from people. Um, but you have this sort of lack of acknowledgement. It's just mentioned as a big problem, and then we kind of just move on. And it's like the numbers are all there. I think it's something like it requires 7 times as many working hours to get a down payment, in like 5 or 10 years or whatever the number is. So like everyone knows these statistics, and they're like, this is destroying society. It's like, well, like, do we want to examine the root cause of any of this at all? And sometimes I actually think people don't even care. They just want to have people click on their post, or, oh, you're so smart. Oh wow, what a visionary, what a lumineer. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man, it's but I love that framing that you used where, it is working as intended. And I think you could say that the US dollar is the biggest innovation in history in theft technology, at least in its current form. And this is one area that the dialogue gets interesting around for me because I am very patriotic. Like I, love the United States, country, community, kind of at every level, and I want us to win and very like, proud of the country. And so I think that when people hear, oh, Bitcoin is going to maybe replace the dollar, or the dollar is bad in some ways, the dollar is like theft technology, that they think you are unpatriotic, that it's anti-American, that you're kind of on this like destroy the dollar, destroy the American empire kick, and that's just not the case at all. The spirit of the original American money in the U.S. dollar, like that was created in I think 1692 is when the dollar was created, and what we have today does not at all resemble what it was back then. It has been corrupted over history. There has been this sleight of hand that has occurred where they have gradually chipped away at the quality of money and taken power away from the holders, from the people, and given it to those in control of the monetary system, centralizing that power. 1913, Federal Reserve created. 1933, FDR outlaws ownership of gold privately. 1944, Bretton Woods system introduced, and then we all know 1971, the link that was kind of the final straw. They're like, all right, we're not even going to even pretend anymore. We're just going to be up and up about the fact that the dollar is backed by nothing, and so they don't really emphasize those years as much in mainstream education in the university system. They don't like to shine the light on the ways in which the dollar has been corrupted over time. And so I would argue that Bitcoin is actually more American than the US dollar of today. and it better reflects the spirit of independence and sovereignty and human flourishing, and that it would be a better, stronger money. And we need to return to those principles. And I see Bitcoin as a way to do that.
I just had this conversation in a group text yesterday. I've buddy who owns some Bitcoin, but you know he enjoys his pod in the Matrix too, and he was bringing up the point that I don't want to see all these Bitcoiners get absurdly wealthy. I'm rooting for America to figure this out. I'm like, dude, the absolute best thing that could happen to America and Americans. And I actually had a long conversation on the pod I did with Richard Greaser. We talked about the difference between America, the state, and the American spirit of the actual people. And to your point, when you talk about patriotism, I don't think you're talking about like any great allegiance to the U.S. government. You're talking about the people you grow up around, your community, the
Yes.
spirit of this country. Like, go to Europe. I mean, I'm sorry, everyone over there is a lazy sack. Like, it's just a different world. Like, say what you want. I don't care. I've been there plenty. People do not work as hard as they do here. People do not care about innovating tech. People care much more about leisure, which, okay, great. There's an argument to be made for that kind of society too. But like, it's just a completely different mentality over here. And even go to South America, go anywhere. It's not the same culture. The people of the United States create a unique culture of innovation, of liberty, and we're having it stolen from us by the government, a large part of which is made possible by the US dollar. The US dollar is financing the stripping of liberty, financing the hollowing out of the middle class, financing the elite 1% that Bernie Sanders likes to talk about, and all that nonsense. Like, that's all happening because of the money. And it's like, you rooting for the dollar is actually rooting against the United States. Like, the dollar is what put us in this predicament, this absurd idea that we have to deficit spend, that we have to export dollars to the world. Like, that has been a terrible, terrible trade for us, for exactly what we just talked about with the hollowing out of our industrial base, our food system being completely dismantled because the money is so messed up, because we have to export dollars to the rest of the world, and we have to hide the inflation. And there is nothing that would be more beneficial to America and Americans than Bitcoin replacing the U.S. dollar, if for no other reason to just make the government actually, have some restraint. I mean, I don't think there's any American, even the most, liberal, crazy leftist in America, I think would say like there probably should be, some restraints on government. Like, even if you're a crazy communist, it's like, well, I'm a communist because I think I'm going to have power and control when communism takes place. I don't actually like the government telling me what car I can drive or what food I can eat. I just think I'm going to have power in the new system because I have none in the old system. And at the end of the day, there's no individual, save for an insane sliver of psychopaths, that really actually want the government like so involved in their life, dictating so much stuff. And that's only made possible because of the U.S. dollar in the United States. Fiat currencies around the world, pick your government of oppressive government of choice. But Bitcoin putting some restraints on them and actually making them be responsible. I mean, I think everyone would agree that that's a good thing, and we should probably move towards that. So, but
Yeah,
it's a
it is the most
reframing. Yeah.
powerful check on government power. It's almost like the first check we'll really have on government power, because we like to talk about checks and balances and what's written on paper and all of those processes and procedures associated with it. But at the end of the day, like push comes to shove, nothing really reins in government gone wild, like having control over the purse strings. You have to actually they need to be able to run out of money and therefore not be able to do more things. And that is a hard wall that needs to exist. And if it doesn't, then it will always find a way to sort of finance or foster its own expansion. And at the expense of everyday citizens who are just working hard,
Well,
trying to live life.
I mean, to that point, these black budgets, we have absolutely no idea how many dollars are in circulation, how many exist. I mean, it is completely insane how much the monetary system is obfuscated. Just the accounting. I mean, there's the famous Rumsfeld line after, like, right after 9/11. It's like, oh, there's a $2 trillion we can't account for. What? Does anyone what? It was just like there was, such the lunacy of 9/11 that just kind of got lost in the shuffle. But it's like back in 2001, we're just missing 2.3 trillion dollars, and that's just the military. That's just like Department of Defense. That doesn't even, there's 900 of other organizations like this, operating under the US government. Like, how much additional money is actually missing? I mean, it's just utterly preposterous that we operate under this completely opaque system of it just having no idea how much money is floating around.
Yeah, I look forward to looking back and just having our minds blown by how crazy this experiment was with central banking and fiat currency. Once we've gotten to a Bitcoin standard and we're in a better place and we're like living in we're a multi-planetary species that is just flourishing beyond belief, living on O'Neill cylinders and hopping around with 0 point energy, and we're going to look back and think, once upon a time we thought that the best foundation for society was give a small group of people the ability to whim money into existence from nothing, with virtually no accountability, and to be able to give it to themselves and their buddies, and that it's it's so normalized that it really is the fish in the water thing of like most people, we don't even realize it, don't even think about it. We just use the money because that's what's been around us all our life, and that's what we see everyone using. The same reason that we get on an airplane without knowing the physics of flight, we just see everyone else do it, and so it's a social consensus. And that's why we're not on a Bitcoin standard yet, is because Bitcoin just isn't as familiar. And we need those early adopters to look critically from first principles at how it compares to alternatives, and they can take the risk and potentially have the reward of adopting early. And then over time, as more and more continue to see that success and choose to adopt themselves, then we'll eventually reach this inflection point at which everyone will just look around and go, oh, everybody I know is starting to adopt Bitcoin, so I guess that I should. And that won't mean that they understand Bitcoin. Just, it'll just be them doing it because they see everyone around them do it. The same way that if you pressed them today on where do dollars come from, they probably would not be able to tell you. For as much as I think about the monetary system, I still have trouble keeping it straight in my mind. Like, okay, to get a dollar into existence, what are the mechanics of it? Is it the Fed? Is it the Mint? Is it the Treasury? Who does what first and when? And most people have no idea how dollars are created, but they don't want to use Bitcoin yet because they feel like they need to really understand it first because it's new. But eventually that all changes. It'll just be social consensus, and when enough early adopters are aboard, there'll be a tipping point and an inflection point, and mass adoption, I think, will happen suddenly after that.
Yeah, I always wonder what that percentage is. Is like, do we need like 10%, 12%? Do we need like 40? I'm always curious as to where you're right, where it just flips and it's like, you know, well, the merchant's saying he will only take Bitcoin, or I'll get a discount for Bitcoin, so I'm just going to use it because I would like to pay less.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm curious. I don't know necessarily what the number is. Maybe it's like, I think maybe it's like 20%. If 20%, if two out of every 10 stores you walked into had a Bitcoin option and a discount, or a hey, we don't take dollars, I think probably at that point people would just be like, I'm just going to use this other money, um, unknowingly. I'll still have dollars because 80% of the stores don't, but fine. I'll use your Bitcoin, and I won't know what the hell's going on. Uh,
Yeah, I think so too, and systems that like other tech movements like the internet, I think will have some parallels in that, Bitcoin is potentially just as transformative as the internet has been. And at first, the internet was this weird thing that a lot of people just kind of wanted to, it seemed complicated. And so people initially in the early 90s would kind of stick their head in the sand and say, I don't want to mess with that internet stuff. It just seems complicated. But if you put in the work and if your business was one of the early ones to adopt it, then you probably crushed it. You probably, just gave you an advantage over others in your industry. And Bitcoin will be similar in my view. If you are one of the early adopters of Bitcoin, then you'll be adopting better monetary technology before others in your industry. And so you'll have an advantage over them. You'll be ahead.
Yeah, your point of we're gonna look back and be like, oh, it's shocking, and I'm actually a little scared for that because my grandkids are gonna be like, you guys were all retarded. Like, what were you doing? Like, how did you think that? Like we look
Why
back
did
at
no
people.
one raise their hand and
Yeah,
say,
we look back at people and are like, oh, why did you put leeches on your forehead when you had a fever? It's gonna be like the same thing. We're gonna be like, you know, what? How did you think this was a good idea? There's just no way. And then they'll make time travel movies about the current time, and it'll be idiots, exchanging paper dollars, for
yeah,
actual goods and services. Like, oh, paper money for this is what they thought was a good idea. These, they'll frame us as like knuckle dragging mongoloids or something for making such stupid economic decisions. So I'm a
yeah.
little nervous. Well, not me because well, even still, they'll be like, well, you spent the first 30 some years of your life being an idiot, so what took you so long? So
I no, yeah, I feel this. I definitely did not think critically about any of this stuff until I guess it probably was 2008 for me, which was right. That was the year that I finished college, and that was the year that like I read Ayn Rand and I found Austrian economics through Ron Paul, and just I felt like hitting like those two things hitting me at the same time just kind of turned my world upside down and I there was this moment of realization where I was like I've never thought about where dollars come from or why we use the money that we use. And that's a little bit embarrassing because it's been around me my entire life and I've transacted every day, but I don't know what this thing is. and and it's kind of just not comfortable to confront that.
was the same thing I had sitting in our CEO's office talking about the bailouts, and I was like, I work at a bank. I've been using money my whole life, and I'm asking like, where are the dollars coming from? And it was, yeah, it's like this is kind of embarrassing. Like, I guess I should know this, but it's funny you say that, sort of like the Ayn Rand and the Ron Paul. Like, one of the things that's so cool about doing this podcast is talking to all the people, and it's like every single person had like a different thing that made it click for them, and it just, I mean, that just goes to show that like Bitcoin, like the money does, and it's not because it's Bitcoin or whatever. It's that money touches absolutely every single aspect of human life, and there's something that happened that involves the monetary system, that involved some sort of price point or economic theory or something, where someone all of a sudden a light goes on and they're like, that doesn't make sense. What is going on here? And it's like people oh, Bitcoin fixes this, fix the money, fix the world. It's like, I was just having a conversation as well about how the problems with a friend sent an article, and it was about degenerate gambling and like porn addiction and stuff, and it was like, finally an article not about crypto. And I was like, well, actually, this all stems from like the broken money. Like this actually, these problems are because the money's messed up, and like that, and we completely broke the money. And so it's just like, even when you think it's not related to it, it is. It has something to do with the money. And that's everyone's origin story, is like something that touched the money. It was like, okay, boom, that was the catalyst. The light went on, and now all of a sudden, and it's because money touches. absolutely every part of your human existence. So,
Yeah, even if it's not the direct cause, it in most
exactly.
cases at least amplifies
Yep.
the magnitude of the problem. And so yeah, and then that's definitely one of our favorite games, right? As Bitcoiners, is like
Yes.
someone tells us anything they don't like about society, we will then tell them how it is connected if you connect enough dots to the money being at the root of it.
Yeah, well, there's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I would go like 3 degrees to money. Like it's even less. It's like half. I
Yeah.
give me a problem, I'll get to money in 3 steps max.
Yep.
So probably one or
Y-
two in most of them. But
Yeah.
uh,
Spot on. I'm good at that. It's one of my favorite games.
it is. It is a good game. All right. Well, Stephen, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you for talking about Castle. The website's Save with Castle, but do you want to send people there? SaveWithCastle.com. Do you want to send people
Yeah.
there? Do you want to have you personally? Where do you want to have people check you out?
Yeah, man, thanks for having me on. It's been a blast to chat. So our website is savewithcastle.com, and we are Save with Castle on pretty much all social media. Of course, X, but Instagram. We have a TikTok account where we're going out there. We're getting to business owners, and then I'm on mostly X. My account is SThenC. And any business owners who hear this, if you're curious about, of course, Bitcoin, or especially like our solution at Castle, what it's all about, the trade-offs of it, would love to chat. My DMs are open, and appreciate the opportunity to come on and the time today, Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say that if you're in the Bitcoin space, if you're doing stuff with small businesses or even just organizations, businesses, anyone that needs some sort of treasury management solutions, reach out to Steven, reach out to his team. They'll give you a demo. You'll see how it works, and so you know what you're talking about when you go out and talk to businesses about it. But it's a super cool tool, and it's great UX, great UI, and we hope to be getting it out to some of the people we're dealing with, some of the business owners and companies we're dealing with as well. So really appreciate your time for us on that, and I encourage other people to get a hold of Steven as well to get the same treatment we get. So
Thanks so much, Brandon, and thanks to you and the excellent squad that you've assembled there at Sovereign, for doing all you do for Bitcoin.
yeah, so speaking of Sovereign, you can check us out. We, in line with you doing the TikTok, we revived our Instagram account this week. So Fiat Land, we're back. You better watch out. We're coming for you. We got the IG account fired up. Um, you can find us on X as well, LinkedIn as well, to round out the Fiat trio of social platforms. I am Plebe Anon on Nostr, and we also have a sovereign account on Nostr that I am ostensibly running, but I do a terrible job at it. So feel free to reach out. I do check the notifications a lot, though. So if I'm not posting or engaging or whatever, just ping me and or ping the sovereign account. I will respond to you. That's like the one thing I actually am good about. So um, thanks everyone for listening. And Stephen, really enjoyed the talk. Thanks for coming on. And until next time, thank you.